On my stand for practice today is Sousa's The Belle of Chicago. You just heard the introduction and first two strains of Sousa's The Belle of Chicago march. It's an interesting march, and I chose it today because it's got some challenges for people and some things that are common to Sousa that you might want to look at. In the very first bar of the first strain, there's a forte marked. Usually that would imply that the pickups to that strain are also going to be a forte. Immediately following the forte is a crescendo, and then no other dynamic is marked through that whole strain. Sousa typically writes those crescendos, and other march writers do sometimes as well, to indicate a phrasing mark. So you actually do crescendo, but you need to find a way to gracefully come back down to the marked forte immediately after that, where it makes sense to you musically. For me, that would be by the beginning of the third bar. I want to be back at a forte. Then later in the piece, that same phrase comes up again without the crescendo in this particular part. That may be an editing error, but I assume Sousa would want the same effect there as well. The second strain is marked at fortissimo at the beginning of the strain. That would apply to the pickups as well. Or you could crescendo on the pickups to that strain, depending on what the band director indicates to you. In the third and fourth bars, and later the same thing happens again, there are what I would call a Sousa-ism, a lower neighbor, a chromatic lower neighbor of a note that's supposed to dig at you a little bit, and generally Sousa would want those accented slightly. You may have run across that in the trio of Stars and Stripes Forever. Where he's got those accented lower neighbors. In this case, the accents aren't marked, but I would apply them because that is stylistic for Sousa. Next, I'll play the trio, which starts at a piano. And as I mentioned before, the pickup to the trio is probably also going to be at a piano. What's unusual to me in this trio, not unheard of, but somewhat unusual, instead of quarter notes with staccatos over them in the first couple bars, he has eighth note, eighth rest, eighth note, eighth rest patterns. Now, because that's different from what is usually marked, I think he wants those very short and light, almost kind of a playful sound to them. If I were going to play a measure that was like that with quarter notes with staccatos over them, but when I play it the way it's written here, with the eighth note, eighth rest pattern, I'm going to try to make those even shorter. As I mentioned, because they're written differently from what I normally see in Sousa's marches, I'm trying to play those differently. I want them very short and very playful sounding, and I don't know if I succeeded, but that's what's in my brain anyway. Going on, we also have some Marcato accents on quarter notes, so I'm trying to make a little bit of those, even though I'm still playing in a rather soft passage. It's a little counterintuitive, but that's what I'm trying to do. Then near the end of this, about 5 bars from the end of the strain, there's a crescendo, and in this case, while it is natural phrasing, it is also a real crescendo because it's carrying us into the second strain of the trio, which is all fortissimo.